Welcome to the next episode of In China Between Meetings with your host Marian Danko, aka China Hustler. We talk about innovation, entrepreneurship and technology. This series of interviews supported by weHustle, a Shanghai-based platform for innovation and growth. We help international and local teams succeed in China. Today we welcome Kapil Kane. Thank you very much for joining me. I know you're very busy and this is only half an hour you have this week. Really appreciate it. Kapil has very interesting story, very interesting background, and you started your story in the US. So you get your master's degree in technical engineering from Stanford University. Why did you move to China? Why you didn't stay there? Because that's the place to build startups. That's the place to start your career.
I started my career in the US. I was actually doing my PhD at Stanford when I dropped out to join Apple. So in a way, it was an entrepreneurial kind of a decision to join a small company at that time. I mean, not that small. We were, let's say, 2,000 people. I joined Apple to design the very first touchscreen that later went into the iPhone. So in a way, I did start in the US, but I moved to China in 2007 when we were starting to do the unibody MacBook Airs. And as a product designer, we at that time thought it was better to move a few designers in China to be close to manufacturing. And so I was one of the first few engineers who moved to China. So that's how I ended up being in China.
How did it happen? Is it a decision of the company or you proactively asked for that? And
No. I think our company decided that we needed some engineers here, especially the product design engineers, and a few of us friends moved here because we were coming to China, every month for prototype builds and production builds, and we were so much used to being here, and it was. China was growing at the time, very exciting place to be, and so it was. We thought it was great to be a part of this new growth that was happening in China.
So it wasn't a hard decision for you to move to China. So you had already a couple of visits, probably.
Not a couple, maybe tens of visits.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So we were pretty, used to being in China, but it was not living in China though. We were being ferried around in cars between factories and hotels, and we would get around the town, but it was not like a complete new place for us. Yeah.
So what was your experience with Apple? What did you learn there, and how many years did you spend there? And actually, why did you leave Apple? Because it feels like a good company to stick around.
I was with Apple for close to 8 or 9 years. What did I learn? I think a few things I learned is how to be really, really good in your trade, and that trade was doing mechanical design, debugging all the problems, going to the very depth of it, being great at building any kinds of products for consumer electronics. Your depth of skill you develop at a place like Apple is amazing, and you're always being mentored or driven by some of the greatest engineers and designers like Jonathan Ive, working with them closely, really understanding what it is like to build the best product you can ever build. So that was a great learning also in terms of developing the technical skills. And there's people may not teach you everything how to do. They will just tell you what needs to be done, and you have to go and figure out how to get it done, which was super exciting. Also, you develop amazing skill of problem solving, and problem solving under very high pressure. And it's such a great place to be, close to manufacturing, to test out your new designs and getting them the built and prototype almost like in real time, right? In China, you can get anything done in no time.
Right.
And so the learning was immense during those years, especially, in my time in the US, I got to know the basics of design, and when I was in China, I got to understand how really manufacturing works. Why I left Apple, I was getting really, really good at doing, what I was doing, which was mechanical design of consumer electronic product. But there was, not too much breadth in the development in terms of the different topics I could understand. And you are always focused on that one thing and getting really good. And most of, so I did like the iPod, MacBook Air, iPad 1, iPad 2, and they were very, very similar. I think you can go to the right. They're very, very similar in terms of the processes you use, the manufacturing technologies you use, and you just keep honing that one skill. And so I thought it was time to do something more, learn more breadth in terms of what is possible. Yeah.
And after you left Apple, so you stayed in China. You didn't want to come back to the US probably, or maybe some other countries?
Yeah, I stayed here. At that time, I was, dating my current wife. And so, I think it was a better place to be. Also, I felt like Shanghai was such an amazing place to live.
Right.
In terms of conveniences, in terms of standard of living, safety for you and your family. So I think it was not a very hard decision to just stay back in Shanghai. Yeah.
How did you come up with the idea, or was basically the plan to keep growing in this direction, right, and to be in this industry? And how did you end up in Intel? And what did you do in the first place when you joined them?
Yeah. So after doing two iPads, the first and the second iPad, I joined Intel to design an education tablet. So at the time, Intel used to design, have this what do you call it? A product line called Classmate PC, and this was based on one laptop per child concept from MIT's Media Lab, where we created a custom-built education PC for emerging markets. And after the success of iPad, even the emerging market wanted a tablet for education, and that's what I came to Intel to help design the education version of the tablet. And at Intel, I could do much more than mechanical design. I could do the complete architecture, both software, hardware, bring in new technologies, and this opened me up to different kinds of technologies out there. I think if I had stayed at Apple, I would have just gone deeper and deeper and deeper in that one field of designing physical products. And Intel was like a completely new learning experience for me. It's I got to learn how the microprocessors work, how a motherboard works, how electronics work. Whereas at Apple, I knew how to build consumer electronic products, but I didn't know how actually they worked on the inside. Yeah.
Right. So you spent a couple of years learning stuff, right? And then I think you start thinking about the corporate innovation more. And after 5 years being with Intel, you co-founded GrowthX.
Right? Yeah.
So what was the story behind the GrowthX?
So so this the education product line, although the design, the technology, technical work all happened in China, the decision making happened in the headquarters in the US. So I was finding it difficult to get new innovative ideas into our products, as all corporates face this problem of being away from their headquarters in a different geo. Getting those ideas from geo back into HQ is a struggle. And I saw that struggle as well firsthand. I think after 3 or 4 years of being in this role, I was getting a little frustrated about not being able to implement the new ideas, and I was looking for something else to do. And I was recommended to this new role that Intel China President Office and Corporate Strategy was creating to streamline innovation for Intel China, because Intel China is a pretty big organization. We have 10,000 employees, and innovation at that time was happening very ad hoc and grassroots level, and they wanted to figure out a way to streamline this. And I took that role because I'd seen how like labs, technical labs or R&D, small R&Ds were struggling to get their ideas off the ground. Not off the ground, but we're very good at creating technology, but not necessarily business applications. And I thought it would be a great way to create a program to help all these employees in China. But at that time, it was not GrowthX. It was called simply Ideas to Reality. This is where you help employees turn their ideas into a reality by giving them the resources they need. And over the years, the program has evolved, and now it's called GrowthX, which is more focused on growing the business for Intel.
So you focus only on the businesses that has potential cooperation, collaboration with Intel in the long run?
I think, so our accelerator is quite different. It's not, it has innovators both from inside as well as outside of Intel. We opened up the accelerator to external startups starting last year in the batch 9. So for the first 8 batches, and we do 2 batches a year, we're focused on internal innovations. But for the last 2 batches, we also opened it up to external innovations. But the goal here is not like a typical, not like a China accelerator where you take equity. And the goal here is to create new business proofs of concept where the startups and Intel work together to grow each other.
Can you please give more details about the accelerator itself? How long does it run? And so you had already 8 batches. So what is the structure? What typical companies are looking for? Probably some of the listeners will be interested as well to learn more about it.
So we actually finished 10 batches. We are recruiting for batch 11 now. For the internal startups, it's pretty simple. Their ideas are pretty much aligned with the strategic direction Intel is going in. For external startups, we are looking for startups who are building their startups by using some of Intel's core technologies like, let's say, OpenVINO, 5G, Edge, AI, the future of cloud and data center, One API, anything where Intel can grow our business in new market segments, in new use cases. Those are the kinds of startups we want to work with.
So do you take the equity or not?
No, it's not an equity program. It's a simple program where we will help you build a strong business case. We have the batch has, we do like 8 sprints per batch. The batch runs for 14 weeks, 16 weeks actually. And each, we have 8 sprints, 2 weeks per sprint. By sprint, what we mean is we focus on one aspect of building a business. So we may start with the business model canvas for the first sprint, then we'll go into value proposition, how to validate your value propositions, and how to build an MVP to test different hypotheses, and all the way to doing financial modeling and business case and pitching that business case, and how to pitch that business case to business leaders within Intel, or even we are helping some of the startups to go raise their next round of funding. The idea here is, is that if we are able to help the startup grow in that particular business they are creating with Intel at its core, we will grow with them as well. So that's our idea of running this accelerator. And for internal employees, what we want to do is we want to give them enough business case and traction for it to become an actual Intel roadmap product. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal of our accelerator.
Are there any similar programs outside of China within Intel?
Yes, Intel has Intel Ignite. It started in Israel, and now I think they're done 3 batches. No, actually, they're doing the 3rd batch, and they have locations in Israel, in Austin, Texas, and I think one location in Germany. They exclusively work with the startups. They help startups grow. They help startups with mentorship, with connections, both with the industry experts as well as to raise the next round of funding. That's what Intel Ignite does. Then we have a program. We have a global incubator program for employees in the Silicon Valley, where we are looking at building the next billion-dollar businesses. So this is focusing on a long-term business incubation, whereas GrowthX focuses on a shorter term, something that can pan out in 12 to 18 months. We are driven by the new incremental revenues we create for Intel, whereas let's say the Intel Global Incubator, it's a longer term view about they're incubating, we are accelerating.
Right. So after all it's already 10 batches, right? Like you mentioned, what are the common challenges that startups have when it comes to basically working with the big company like Intel?
So one of the things we have figured out, a lot of times if you just create a startup acceleration program, right, and if you're not able to resource a team of champions within the corporate, then that relationship between the startup is very superficial. They can't get a lot of things done. So what we have done with our program is that each startup that works with us, we have people within Intel, within different business units, that actively help these guys get the help they need, so that they're not always fighting to get to the right people in the organization, right? Also, other thing you need to see is that where is this program or the accelerator run under? Is it under like a marketing team, or is it run through through like a business unit, strategy team? Where does this program reside, right? It also tells you how close they are to the businesses as well. So those are the 2 things I see, is finding the right people and having the right authority to make decisions. And I think the startup should be should do a bit due diligence on the accelerator, on the program, on the partnership with corporates before they go and spend a lot of time and resources on that partnership, right? Because you don't want you have limited time and resource to grow,
right,
and you need to make sure that these partnerships you make are real, and it's not just some kind of a PR stunt from the corporate.
Going deeper on the second point, right, about the authority, about the department who is actually taking lead for the program. So what do you think is the best department, if you can basically just say this department would be the better choice for startups to take this program? Is it marketing, like you said, or is it BU unit?
Yeah, so I think definitely you need to avoid the programs that are funded just through marketing. There are a lot of so-called accelerators which are almost run like an event, right? I think there can be some value from there, for example, they may be able to meet people, but I think their KPIs are different. The KPIs are maybe the attendance, the impressions in the media. It might help you in a way if you're looking for that exposure, but it may not help you actually get a real business deal with that corporate, or maybe the support you need from that corporate in actually growing the business, right? I think so. You also need to look at where does this accelerator reside? Does it reside in a let's say like a innovation center? A lot of times, this innovation, even the innovation center, you need to look at who is running this. What is their background? Do they really understand innovation? Were they just running some marketing department and then they became like the one running the innovation center? So I think we need to do a little bit of diligence on this, the corporate innovation departments or innovation centers or accelerators you work with. In the end, it's all about the people, so as let's say investors do due diligence on the startups, and the startups also need to do due diligence on the corporates they work with.
What are your KPIs? How do you measure the success of your program?
So number one KPI is the incremental revenue that we drive for Intel. That's the biggest KPI. For our employees, we also look at the employee development. What we have seen is that the employees who have gone through our accelerator have fared much better, like in some cases, on an average 1.5 to 6 times better than the other employees in terms of climbing the corporate ladder. So that's another KPI. We look at the people development, and finally we also look at the innovation thought leadership that we drive in the ecosystem as well. But the biggest KPI is definitely the incremental revenue we drive for Intel. Yeah.
You are the only foreigner in this incubator, or you have other foreigners working with you in the team?
So we work very closely with Xnode, right? So Xnode is the one who helps us run the accelerator, and it's a mix of Chinese and like non-Chinese people. It's a pretty good mix. Yeah.
So you've been doing this for 4 years already, right? And in the first place, why do you think the company actually gives you the opportunity to run the corporate acceleration program in China as the foreigner? Even if you probably speak decent level of Chinese and understand the culture differences, and you've been here for 5-10 years, but still, when it comes to growing, building business, and at this level, working for the huge company, usually they give the preference to the local people, and it makes sense. So why do you think you just got lucky, or you had something?
No, I think the thing was, so we started mostly with internal facing program, right? So this was about helping our employees turn their ideas into business. So it was very internal focused, and it was not about, it was not. So this is not a program to as a face of the company to the external people, right? It kind of naturally evolved to include people in the open ecosystem, but also, we have a program that has like a more of a government outreach, more of like the broader ecosystem outreach run by local people. But in the end, Intel is an MNC, right? And our goal is is more focused inwards. It's not about working with the, let's say, it's not about on our own trying to work with the Chinese ecosystem in general, but our goal, like I said, is about creating incremental revenues for Intel. So in the end, the startups have to work with Intel. We are not here to, let's say, with the primary goal of introducing the startups to the Chinese investors per
Right.
se, right? So it's still very much focused on Intel, things coming into Intel. So it doesn't matter, who runs this program. Is it Chinese or non-Chinese? That doesn't matter at all. Yeah.
Great. And the last question before I let you go to your next meeting, what is innovation for you? How do you define it?
Being from a tech company, right? People a lot of time confuse innovation with invention.
Right.
So invention is something that you create that never existed before. Like inventing a transistor in a lab, you may or may not get a patent for it, and that's an invention. But innovation doesn't necessarily creating something new. Innovation is using something that maybe already exists in one area and then applying it to a completely different area to unlock new values for your users or customers. And I think another key thing about the innovation is that the value you create is you can get paid for that, right? Otherwise, it's not really like innovation. Like if you just create something cool and give it to someone, but they don't value it as much, they'll take it if it's free, but they're not willing to put their hands in their pocket to pay. It's not really an innovation. It's not a sustainable innovation. So I think innovation, bringing value, solving people's challenges, not necessarily you don't need to create something new. You can use something existing in a new innovative way. And I think the last is that that innovation also needs to bring revenues to your startup for bringing that value. That's the ultimate indicator if people value what you or someone values what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time, for your sharing.
Yep, you're
It was a
welcome.
pleasure to have you, and I really learned a lot myself. Thank you for that.
Cool. And thanks for being our ecosystem partner, helping us reach out to the startups in the community. It's a great help. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was In China Between meeting with Kapil Kane. Thank you for listening. Please do subscribe to our WeChat and YouTube channel. Leave a comment and like, and stay tuned for the next episode.